Breaking news! What if I told you the Ravens are about to pull off the most shocking move of the offseason, one that could send a franchise icon away and make the team even stronger in the process? A move so bold, so unexpected, that it's already generating debate across the league. This isn't just a trade, it's a complete identity change. And it all starts with a single controversial name. You won't believe who's involved, or why this might be the smartest move Baltimore's front office has made in years. But before we dive into this jaw-dropping scenario, be sure to like this video if you're a die-hard Ravens fan. It means a lot to the channel and helps more fans like you stay informed. And since you're here, leave a Go Ravens in the comments if you're ready to support the team no matter what. Let's go! The Baltimore Ravens, always known for their calculated approach to roster building, may be taking one of the biggest swings of the Eric DeCosta era. Imagine this. On draft night, the Ravens send Mark Andrews, their 2025 first-round pick, and their 7th-rounder to the Kansas City Chiefs, all to jump from the 14th pick up to the 9th. The reason? A once-in-a-decade linebacker talent by the name of Arvell Reese out of Ohio State. Yes, you heard that right. Mark Andrews, the same tight end who's been a staple of the offense since 2018, traded away. Now, let's talk about that for a second. Mark Andrews was last among all NFL tight ends in yards after catch in 2025. It's a brutal stat for a player once revered for his ability to extend plays after the reception. That downward trend has some in the building believing Andrews has plateaued, or worse, is on the decline. His cap hit doesn't help either. Meanwhile, Kansas City is starving for tight end help, with Travis Kelce aging and their TE depth nearly non-existent. For the Chiefs, Andrews could be a short-term solution. For the Ravens, it's about maximizing draft capital and taking a big swing on the future. And that future is Arvell Reese. This kid is a game changer. Reese is the kind of linebacker you build a defense around. Think Micah Parsons. Think rookie year Kyle Hamilton. Explosive, versatile, instinctual. Reese can rush off the edge, play in coverage, and dominate between the tackles. In 2025, he put up 69 tackles, 10 for loss, 6.5 sacks, 23 pressures, and 2 pass breakups. And this isn't just a box score warrior. He allowed only 189 receiving yards all season, a jaw-dropping number for a linebacker. Mel Kiper himself called Reese a complete football player and a veteran presence on the field with next-level instincts. This is the kind of talent that falls unexpectedly, and when he does, you don't think twice. You trade up and get him, especially when your tight end room already includes Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kolar, both of whom have shown enough flashes to suggest they're ready for bigger roles. Add a mid-draft TE like Tanner Kozel out of Houston, who put up 651 yards and 5 TDs in 2025, and you're cooking. The Ravens wouldn't just survive without Andrews, they could evolve. Now, from there, things only get more intriguing. In the second round, at pick 45, Baltimore selects Colton Hood, cornerback out of Tennessee. This is a guy who was forced into the CB1 role after Tennessee's top corners went down with injury, and he thrived. 50 tackles, 9 pass breakups, and a pick, plus a stunning 51.9% completion rate allowed. He even returned 2 picks for touchdowns. Yes, there are size concerns, and that's why he slips to the mid-second. But with Marlon Humphrey's contract situation murky heading into 2026, it's a strategic move to reinforce the secondary now. Round 3, enter Jennings Dunker, offensive lineman from Iowa. He's a beast, dominant in the Senior Bowl, starter on the Joe Moore Award-winning O-line, and allowed just 2 sacks all season. Dunker played tackle in college, but projects as a guard in the NFL, which fits perfectly with Baltimore's likely plans. With Emory Jones locked in on one side, Dunker could compete immediately for a starting job on the interior. He's got the grit, the technique, and most importantly, the flexibility. Defensive line help comes in round 4 with Grayson Halton out of Oklahoma, another Senior Bowl standout. At 6 feet 2 inches, 292 pounds, he might be undersized, but he makes up for it with quickness and motor. 31 tackles, 3.5 sacks, and a forced fumble don't tell the full story. This guy was pure chaos in the trenches. The Ravens, already with a rotational DT in Raised Peoples, could now pair him with Halton to keep that interior pressure relentless. We're still not done. In round 5, with multiple picks, the Ravens go wide out with Ted Hurst out of Georgia State. Standing 6 feet 3 inches with sub 4.4 speed, Hurst racked up nearly 2,000 yards and 15 TDs over his last 2 seasons. A deep ball threat and contested catch specialist, he could bring Lamar Jackson a target type the Ravens have sorely lacked. Later in the same round, they snagged Trezon 3, Texas A&M, OL, who played 12 games and allowed just 1 sack in 2025, giving much-needed depth across the line. By the end of the draft, Baltimore adds Max Llewellyn, an edge rusher from Iowa with 6 sacks over 23 games, and Lander Barton, another linebacker to reinforce a group that's seen way too many injuries. And remember, Roquan Smith's future in Baltimore isn't guaranteed. Barton could be a long-term answer, with Teddy Buchanan and Arvell Reese forming a fierce young linebacker core, because the debate is just heating up. Let's pick it up from that critical question. Should the Ravens really trade Mark Andrews? For many fans, the emotional connection to Andrews makes this idea unthinkable. He's been the go-to guy in key moments, a favorite of Lamar Jackson, and a leader in the locker room. But in the NFL, the margin between loyalty and logic is razor thin. The numbers from 2025 aren't kind to him. Dead last among tight ends in yards after the catch. That's a brutal decline for a player once seen as elite in space. When a tight end stops creating yards after contact, stops pulling defenders toward him, and starts relying purely on contested grabs, it's time to question the long-term value. Baltimore has historically been ahead of the curve on knowing when to move on. They did it with Terrell Suggs, with Marshall Yanda, with Earl Thomas. This could be another case of making the tough decision before it's too late. With Andrews' peak seemingly behind him, the return in this trade, the chance to draft a top 5 level talent in Arvell Reese, becomes that much more justifiable, especially when you already have 2 young tight ends in Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kolar who are cheaper, healthier, and ready to step into bigger roles. And let's not forget what the Ravens are getting, a potentially game-altering chess piece on defense. Imagine a front 7 featuring Roquan Smith, if he stays, Patrick Queen, if re-signed, and Arvell Reese. Imagine the disguised blitzes, the hybrid coverages, the matchup nightmares for offenses trying to read who's rushing, who's dropping, and who's flying downhill at the snap. Jesse Minter could build his defense around Reese and Hamilton for the next half-decade. Then you stack on the rest of the draft. Colton Hood might be the biggest sleeper at cornerback this year. With injuries decimating Tennessee's CB room, he stepped up and shined against SEC competition. His quickness, reaction time, and football IQ all scream day one contributor. He may not have elite size, but he plays bigger than his frame. And if Marlon Humphrey's contract becomes an issue, this is the kind of move that prepares you now, not after it's too late. Now, let's talk trenches. Jennings, Dunker, and Trezon 3 are exactly the kind of linemen Baltimore has thrived with. Physical, technically sound, and team first. Dunker is particularly interesting because of his experience across multiple positions. He may never start at tackle in the NFL, but as a guard, he's NFL ready. That versatility is gold. With Ben Cleveland still a question mark and the loss of veterans like Andrew Voorhees and Daniel Falale looming, the Ravens need plug-and-play depth. Dunker gives you that. And then there's Grayson Halton. While his size keeps him out of early round projections, don't underestimate his production and disruption. If the Ravens rotate him with Travis Jones and Justin Matabike, that's a lot of interior movement and pocket collapse. It won't always show up in sack numbers, but quarterbacks will feel it. That's what the Ravens are betting on, creating chaos up front while giving their linebackers and secondary the time to make plays. Wide receiver Ted Hurst is another upside swing. Coming from Georgia State, he may not have faced SEC corners every week, but the measurables don't lie. At 6 feet 3 inches and running in the low 4.4s, he's got the physical profile you want on the outside. He's not just a project, he's productive. Nearly 2,000 yards and 15 touchdowns in 2 seasons. Lamar Jackson has long needed a receiver with a true catch radius who can win 50-50 balls downfield. Hurst brings that element. If he can translate his skills to the NFL level, it's a steal. And don't overlook the move to draft another tight end in Tanner Kozel. Why draft another one after moving Andrews? Because in Declan Doyle's offense, tight ends don't just catch passes, they're used as fullbacks, slot mismatches, and run game enforcers. Kozel's ability to do both block and catch, 65 catches, 651 yards, 5 TDs in 2025, fits perfectly with what this offense needs. Add that to likely